Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending HammerCon. Thank you for coming to this track and hearing about innovation and how that relates to cyber operations. So that's the focus of my talk, is innovation and how we should be investing in innovation to help our cyber operations. So my name is Jeff Berlet. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Peraton's Cyber Mission Sector. In that role, I lead our research and development of cyber capabilities. I focus on workforce development, making sure that we have the right skills, the right certifications, the right education, the right experience for our workforce. I also get involved with delivering cyber capabilities to our government customers, the cyber warfighters, whether that's defensive or threat hunting or offensive in nature. And then finally, I'm part of a corporate team that is involved with technology partnerships. And those are related to big tech companies, smaller tech companies, sort of niche tech companies, as well as centers and institutes, national labs, academia, small businesses, and other defense companies. A little bit about Peraton, and then we'll move off that topic quickly. Peraton's a pretty large company, 18,000 employees, about $8 billion of business every year. We have about 4,000 cyber professionals doing about $1 billion of cyber business every year. Many people don't know the company because it was only formed a few years ago. It started as a breakout or a small breakout of Harris Aerospace, and then that company merged with some small businesses and then acquired two divisions of Northrop Grumman, the company known as Perspecta or Vencor, which was a breakout of Lockheed Martin, and then the government business of Vion, which is a global telecommunications company. So the company grew from about 1,000 employees to 18,000 over the last 5 years. So I don't want to talk a whole lot about Peraton, but I will mention that as we go through the slides here today, we invest our internal research and development funds on these kind of innovations I'll talk about. We also do this work collaboratively with the government, so government-funded research. And a lot of the experience that we have comes out of the military. We hire people right out of the military, people that are transitioning out of the military. About 30% of our workforce is former military. For those that are interested to learn more about Peraton, we won't cover it here, but we do have a booth in the exhibit room, so come and talk to us, myself and a few of our colleagues. I can also stay behind and answer any questions as we transition to the next session, and I'll leave some room for questions, but please, let's make this a discussion. Throw your hands up if you have any questions as we go along. So let me talk about cyber operations and the need for innovation. I want to make the argument that innovation is more important today than it's ever been in this cyber domain. And a couple of reasons for that, sort of setting the baseline here. We have greater quantity, greater velocity, and greater complexity of cyber attacks today than we've ever had before. So it's no longer a single hacker trying to hack into and steal information from a single system. Think person against system or system against system. We're now talking about AI-enabled tools that are being used by adversaries and by criminal organizations and by hackers to attack multiple systems, multiple networks, or everything that they can get their targets set against. And that includes our weapon systems that the U.S. depends on. It includes our critical infrastructure. So it's a very different world, but I want everybody to leave thinking about AI tools being injected into this cyber warfare space. And if that's happening on the adversary side, what are we doing on the positive side, on the good side? So 6 points I want to cover today, and we'll have some slides to go over these. I want to talk about alignment of innovation to the mission. And we're going to talk about what does that mean. So that's the current mission and the future mission as best as we can predict it. I want to talk about operational efficiencies. This is very important, especially in this administration. How are we doing things to save money, save resources? And we all need time, so how are we trying to save time? Think about automation, use of AI, use of advanced technologies, just to save ourselves time. That's an efficiency topic. Train as you fight is my third point, and I'll have a slide on this as well. Has anyone heard that term, train as you fight? Okay, yeah, so this is very important, and I think as we talk about the advanced capabilities of our adversaries, the way we train is going to have to be that much more important, because it's not going to be a simple attack and we follow a procedure and try to thwart the attack. It's going to be a much different cyber warfighting landscape. And we're seeing that right now with conflicts going on in Europe, as well as the Middle East. Number 4, I wanted to talk about courses of action generation. So this is a new way of thinking about not just building playbooks and following sort of rigorous approved playbooks, but how can we have AI and large language model thinking and learning help us determine what is the course of action we should be taking. So it's a speed advantage, it's a recommendation that's coming with a lot of informed intelligence through AI, and it gives us some decision superiority. 2 more, number 5 for my talk today will be intel enrichment. This is the classic problem. I think many of us in the room know about this. How do we use intel to enrich operations? So anybody in the room here in a J2 or a J3 capacity or previously? So show of hands, anybody? A couple of people. So this is the classic problem. How do we get intelligence from highly classified networks into our operations, maybe at the unclassed level or SIP or NIPR level? And we've got to find ways to do that. So I'll talk about that. And then finally, this is the fun topic. The last topic is the fusion of cyber with electronic warfare and information warfare. We're starting to see elements of the Department of Defense do that fusion. There's some great successes that are happening, and there's some innovation opportunities there as well. So as I mentioned before, Peraton's involved with a lot of this research, whether it's government funded or internally funded. This is the kind of work we do. Come to our booth and hear more about it, or find me on LinkedIn. My name's there, Jeff Berlet, and we can have a conversation about that. So let me go to alignment to mission. So this is about how are we going to align our innovation to the mission, both the current and the future mission. And I want everyone to think about working back from the win. And what does that mean? It really means, what are we trying to achieve? What is the end result? What's that future state that we're trying to get to? So if you're in a DCO SOC operation, that means there's no successful attacks against what you're defending. If you're in an OCO perspective, it means you're able to put an effect on a target. If you're a threat hunter, it means you can find an adversary and be proactive about it, or maybe handle multiple threat hunting scenarios simultaneously. So there may be a scaling factor, which is your win position. But we have to think about that work back from the win. And I want to ask people, has anyone heard of the Gartner hype cycle? Anybody, a couple of people? Yeah, Gartner hype cycle. Just talking about that for a moment. This is a model that Gartner came up with around innovation and technology investment. And the idea is, when you're first investing in a technology, there's very little support. A lot of people are doubtful. There might be just a couple of stakeholders, or maybe you've invented this idea yourself, and you've got very little amount of support. And then you build support over time. And then things start to really accelerate, and you get to a hype or a high point of enthusiasm. That's when you're going to encounter the final demand for that capability to go into operations and be used by an end user, a cyber warfighter, for example. And here's the problem. You've built up all that enthusiasm, and now we find out things like, well, that capability isn't quite right for operations. It doesn't have an ATO, an authority to operate. It needs to be integrated with other systems that are maybe 10 years old, 15 years old, 5 years old. And all of that is going to slow down the delivery of that capability into operations. So this is what I mean about making sure that we're aligned to the mission. If you're working on a capability and innovation, make sure you think through that whole cycle, because if you get up to that high level of enthusiasm and you miss, you come crashing down, and you come into this valley of death. People have probably heard that term before. And then you've got to work your way out. When that happens, very rarely do things go well. Meaning maybe only 20% of things that hit that valley ever really come out. And that means all that effort has been wasted. So again, make sure your innovations, make sure your research, make sure your modernization is focused, and make sure you have that transition to operation ATO in mind. That's very important. The other topic I wanted to bring up here, I think we all know this, that we're in a technology space race right now. You hear this in the news. There's a fight going on right now about exports of silicon manufacturing and supercomputing chips and GPUs and neural processing units, all the rest. This is a real challenge for us. So if we're thinking about alignment to mission, think about the future requirements that you're going to have. You may not have those written down today. But it's a set of requirements that we have to be focused on when we're innovating. We're going to be in a different computing world very, very shortly, and technology is going to be very different than what we're working on today. Again, ask questions anyway along the presentation today. Next is operational efficiency. So the easiest way to get this kicked off is let's think about DOGE, right? The government's going through a lot of efforts right now to save funding, save budget. The same applies to the way that we do our cyber operations. We should always be looking for savings. I said before that we need to save time. That's very important for our operators, our cyber warriors. They need time back so they can not be fatigued in the work they're doing. But we also need to save money so we can reinvest those dollars into new innovations, possibly save those dollars, use those saved dollars as a way to scale up, or even use those dollars for new priorities. I'm thinking like Golden Dome here. So Golden Dome is a big priority for this administration. From a cyber perspective, I think everyone, or many of you know this already, there's a left of launch component, which is how do we understand the situational awareness before launch? How do we get into that space? How do we affect that space? That's called left of launch, and cyber is a big aspect of it. So every time you can save some time or money, think about automation, think about efficiencies, that can fund new capabilities in new areas like Golden Dome left of launch, which is going to be very focused on signals intelligence and cyber and information warfare, et cetera. Also wanted to say, think about value models. Think about the investment you're making and the return on that investment. Now that's sort of more of a business way of thinking, but even in the government, we need to be thinking about that right now. That's very much what you're hearing in the DoD and the intelligence community through the White House. Think about value models and return on the investments we're making. And again, this is all about making the argument stronger about why we need to innovate and why we need to spend resources, precious resources on innovation. So train as you fight. I'll call on the audience here. Anybody want to give a good definition of train as you fight, or give an experience where they've maybe been in an environment where they pushed for this and it happened or didn't happen? Please go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So from a defensive cyber operations perspective, with a cyber protection team, you work together, right, towards different gunnery tables. There's a collective kind of engagement that you do, and then a validation exercise or a valex. Through that entire process, you should be training as you fight. It's in MTO, it's on the metal, right? You have MTO'd and TDA positions. But more pointedly, if we can't work together and communicate together during those scenarios, then when we get on mission, on the gig, it's not going to be pretty. Right? So that's a pointed example of training as you fight.
Yeah, that's a great example. So that's what we're talking about here. And now we're thinking more and more about how do we innovate. So it's not good enough just to offer training courses, training content, have individuals train on different scenarios. It really is about collaboration and teamwork. And it's really about making sure that the training includes simulated adversarial TTPs, tactic, techniques, and procedures. That's what we have to focus on. And think about swarm attacks in the cyberspace. Think about complex attacks that are zero-day, things we haven't seen before. Think about the velocity of attack being never-ending. It starts and it doesn't end. How are we going to train to defend if that's the way cyber warfare against the near-peer adversary really takes place? And we really haven't experienced that yet, but we need to train for it now. Yes, go ahead.
So on top of that, not only it's like looking at enemy TTPs, but looking at our own TTPs, our own SOPs when doing that training. Because a lot of times, like we'll have like TTPs and SOPs on paper, but then when you do the training and actually try to like follow that like you would in a real mission, you find out they don't actually work. So definitely refining that. Yeah,
the feedback loop you're talking about. And that gets back to the efficiency part as well, that if we're doing this training and we're finding problems, let's make sure we feed back and get those improvements back in, sort of continuous improvement. And then also look for opportunities to inject more AI technology, more workflow technology, and less human technology, which is costly in time and human resources. Perfect. So, and the only thing I would bring back up is, in the early days of information assurance or cyber defense, there was this idea of brute force attack, and you could take things down by just throwing lots of packets at devices and so forth. And that sort of faded away a little bit, but there's no doubt that when we're in a cyber war campaign or cyber warfare, or in a normal kinetic warfighting stance, that there's going to be cyber activity, and we should expect the adversaries to try brute force attack. So think about that. If there's small number of humans with only the amount of time that we have, it's not going to work. You can understand the argument for innovating around artificial intelligence for the defensive cyber operations mission. Okay, so related to this, I wanted to talk about courses of action generation, COA generation. And this is really becoming an important area of research for my company and other companies and the government. This is the idea of using the data that we have in concert or in combination, learning from that data, we're talking about large language models here, and using AI to basically act as an avatar and give the cyber operator the right course of action, the well thought out, the prioritized course of action. So this only gets better over time as well. So if we invest in this and really commit to this, we have continuous learning, best practices, more learning from the AI perspective. And this would be very important if there's that large scale, repetitive, persistent attack, because a lot of the attack vectors we can deprioritize and ignore, but how do we know which ones to ignore, which ones to prioritize? AI is excellent at this. AI can understand the threat actors, the cyber threat intelligence that we have, world events, open source intelligence, maybe some signals intelligence if we get some support from the J2 community, as well as maybe information sharing that's happening in other parts of the government or maybe in critical infrastructure elements. All of that can come together very rapidly, and AI can learn from that and continue to learn from that and say, this is the best way to defend. This is the best course of action to take. So if people are interested in that, please come and talk to me, because that's an area of research that I'm very involved with, and we've got a lot of interest with the DoD in this space. Doing a lot of research on how to build the algorithms to give trusted courses of action to decision makers. And it's really moving from knowledge management. Think about when an attack happens, we now go research, we now go look at our playbooks, that's knowledge management. This is about decision superiority, trying to create the right course of action with the information quickly and make sure we're right on target. Does anyone have experience with that, using AI to look at large data sets and give recommendations to operators? You do, okay. Do you want to talk about that for a minute, 30 seconds?
Sure, yeah. I can say that when you're working with very large amounts of bulk data, and for example, you need just a very small piece of data about a certain particular topic, right? And control that done quite cut it. AI agents are really effective at acting as almost junior operators or junior analysts.
Yeah.
And that's, you assign them a persona, you assign them a task, and they can logically parse, very, very massive amounts of bulk data,
Right.
and basically tip and cue your attention to the little islands in the ocean that are very close.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment, and I would say let's think about the idea that a junior analyst now gets powered up by that assistant, that avatar, and now becomes a more senior operator analyst sort of instantly. And then let's also think about the learning we have from this, feed that back to the train as you fight. So this COA part can also take everything that we've just learned and feed that into the way that we train. So that's the previous topic. These two need to be interconnected. So it's AI in the training environment, think AI in your cyber range, and AI from your courses of action feeding each other so the training becomes improved on every one of these COA generation instances. Okay, fantastic. Any other thoughts on that topic? Other experience? Anyway, what I would recommend to everybody is bring those ideas back to your workplace and talk about the use of AI and how important that would be if you can get an AI avatar to help a junior operator, a junior cyber threat hunter be more effective? There's just incredible power there, incredible value there. And then feed that back into your train as you fight. Okay, so intel enrichment, I'm very passionate about this one, and I'm sure people in this room feel this way too. This is the idea, if we're going to fight in cyberspace, we absolutely need to take advantage of everything we have. We can't have an arm tied behind the back. We can't leave all that great signals intelligence and other intelligence in a different building and on a different network in a different compartment. It's just not going to work. That's not how the adversaries are going to work. So we need that intelligence enrichment into our cyber operations space. So how do we do that? We're talking about TSSCI type data being shared with operators that may be on unclassified networks or NIP or SIP networks. Well, there are now some emerging technology solutions for this. So think cross-domain solutions. Those have been around for a little bit, but now they're getting to be better than just sending single messages. We can do command and control through cross-domain solutions. We can send intelligence through. Think role-based access controls, data tagging. If we do this right, we also have a chance to share intelligence with our allies and partners, and we can also tell those partners and allies that we can use their intelligence and share that with our cyber operations. So think about a bigger information sharing environment. So we have to get the J2s and the J3s and A2s and G2s working with their counterparts throughout all of government. I think this is really going to be important. If we try to win in a cyber battle without that intelligence, we're really fighting without everything we have. And the adversary won't do that. They'll use everything they have to beat us. Anybody have any success stories there? I mean, I'm always looking for some success stories where we have like maybe an embedded intel team in an operations cell. I know they exist.
Well, I was in Korea for 6 years. First, one of our systems was the cross domain for the peninsula. So we did data sharing across 2 U.S. networks, 2 coalition networks. There's all the way that you tag that data. So
right.
Now I transitioned over to Google, working with Google Cloud Orchestrator, which is doing very much similar thing, but with much larger data sets.
Fantastic.
Things like that. So
fantastic.
The barriers to success in this field are like the complexities of integrating a system and a lot of requirements.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great example. And the thing I would mention is if you're in an ops floor environment and you see a green door, that's not really what we want. We don't want the intelligence behind a green door. We want that intelligence in the floor working with the operations team for sure. So that's sort of the old style of doing things. Like you say, sharing, cross-domain solution, info sharing, getting the intel analysts into the operations floor is very important. So that's called intel enrichment. And then the final point is related to this as well. And this is around cyber, electronic warfare, and information warfare fusion. And this is the same argument that if we want to fight and win, we have to have all of our data, all of our subject matter expertise, all of our intelligence sort of pointed at the adversary or defending against the adversary. So again, we need cooperation between the intelligence community and the ops community. We also need these different disciplines to work. And there's some great example. I'll just call out the Army TIADs. Does anyone know what that is? Has anyone heard of an Army TIAD? Okay. So this is a new invention or a new creation in the Army, really led by Army Cyber, and this is called a Theater Information Advantage Detachment. The interior part of that acronym, information advantage, is really the key. This is how do we create information advantage? And it's by fusing these different disciplines. Cyber, EW, IW, spectrum management, OSINT, information operations, PSYOPs, bringing all those together. And that's exactly what these TIADs are. They are a cross-discipline team, trained together, deployed together to go work on these serious cyber problems. This is how Army Cyber is handling it. And all of those folks bring different perspectives. They all bring different tools. They all bring different experiences. And these teams have been wildly successful. They've just rolled out recently out of Army Cyber. There's a couple in the Pacific, and there's a few others that are forming right now. So I would encourage you to think about that if you're in a position of deciding how to do this kind of fusion. Think about bringing those disciplines together. That's the people side of it. From a technology side of it, a lot of companies, including Peraton, we bring these data sets together and we bring the data into a common operating picture. Has people heard of that term before, a COP? Yeah, bringing that data into a common operating picture so that you can act on the data and see the enrichment. That's my reminder, 5 minutes. And we're on the last slide, so that's perfect. But no, this is what is very important, that industry and some of the technology offices in the government can help bring those things together and make that information enriched in a single common operating picture, so you can look at layers of data and see how what's happening in the cyberspace is also reflected in the open source intelligence space or in the spectrum space. So that's important. We have to push for that. We really can't win our future cyber fights or kinetic warfare if we have people having to turn and go into different systems or go to the switch box and flip from one system to another and then look at some data in one system and try to go to another system and do the human gymnastics of how does that relate to another set of data. That's not going to work. We have to have this data fused. We have to have tools showing the data together, and there's a lot of technical solutions for that, both from industry as well as from inside of the government. So that's it. I think I have about 3 minutes left. That's my last slide. Again, I'm just here to talk about these concepts so you can all go back and talk about the importance of innovation. We can't stand still. We can't really fight the way that we have. Not against near-peer adversaries. Fine for the counterterrorism mission that we've had for years, but as we go forward, we're going to face a much different adversary with greater capabilities, greater velocity, quantity, complexity. So this is going to matter. Advocate for it as you see fit. You all probably have your own experiences that you can bring forward, but it's important that we have, in this community, the MCPA, that we are all thinking this way and trying to make influence around innovation and how important that is. So, 3 minutes left. Questions? Anyone? Yes?
What's Peraton doing to, you mentioned DOGE, what is Peraton doing or trying to do to increase their efficiency in reference to support the war fight?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Peraton and other companies like Peraton, we're all taking a look and saying, can we use more technology and maybe less contractor labor? So that's a cost savings for the government. That's number one. So if we can put AI agents in and have those work as agentic agents, maybe we have less expensive contracting resources, number one. Number two is we are trying to make sure we don't hit that valley of death. So everything we build right now, we have this laser focus on. It has to be delivered into operations. Otherwise, that's been wasteful for all of government, all of industry. So let's make sure we design our capabilities with the operator in mind.
You're halfway through ATO?
We're already, yes, we're already ready to take it right into ATO. Yeah, with a lot of proactive work on that front. Has to be government and industry partnership to make that happen, but that's in our minds for everything. Those would be the top two, I would say. Good question. Other questions? Yes?
Just curious, as someone who does research here, are there any particularly unorthodox or unique applications that you found for emerging AI methods and this kind of work?
Well, let's see. From a training perspective, we've used AI to actually generate personas and simulated threat actors, and also create those avatars. It's better to have a friendly face talk to you than just have a line of text going in the chat window. So we've been doing a lot of work. There's some commercial tools that are available. Integrators like Peraton know how to put those tools together and give you an end solution that can work in government spaces. But I would say that's pretty innovative, using AI to create like you see in sci-fi movies, an avatar that talks to you and you can chat with. That's probably my top of the head answer. Okay, I think one more question. Colin Hank Brown? No, go ahead, over here.
Just kind of curious, on the innovation front, right, we've been hearing a lot about quantum, right, and China catching up, and, we're in this arms race with China, and quantum, breaking encryption and things like that. It was just a post on LinkedIn release that, it's peer reviewed that they're breaking RSA encryption, and they've done it 8 months ago or whatever. It just got peer reviewed. What are you seeing in your position as CTO in the cyberspace with our position from the U.S.
Yeah.
as it relates to quantum?
Yeah. Now, thank you for the question. It's a very serious problem. There's no doubt that we're, as a company, looking into that. We're doing research with University of Maryland. We're doing research with the U.S. government through DARPA in this space. But think of all the data that we have at rest that we think is protected, and unfortunately, it's not. So I immediately think about the need for zero trust type of architectures that can protect our network. So if anyone trying to get to that data, if it's not already been stolen, they can't get into our networks and transverse and move horizontally to go find that data, exfil it, and then decrypt it. So I think zero trust becomes more important just from a keep what's still in our possession, that's still uncopied, under control. Data that's already been stolen is unfortunately very vulnerable. But there are a number of startup companies in this space as well that we're talking to, partnering with. But we need to have that demand signal from the government to really build a program of record or a big capability in that space. Thanks for the question. I think we're done.
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's give Jeff a round of applause.